So you unlocked Venomous because you want to play a DPS healer hybrid, but the guns just aren't hitting the way you want them to hit. Well, this guide is going to cover an alternative melee version of the healing DPS hybrid build for Venomous. So this build is going to be very similar to the crit weapon power build that I did with the rifles earlier on. This one is going to focus more on daggers though, and I'm going to be using the Venom dagger with this one. And I have actively cleared all the content in the game already with this build, so you should have no trouble leveling up or clearing any of the higher level content with this build. For the accessories that I'm using, these are actually a pretty solid choice early on. I plan to try to upgrade these when I get a chance. But we've got the Bone Doll. I only got that one at 23 and 31, so we're using the 23 version. That gives you a good chunk of weapon power. This Idol gives you a good chunk of weapon power, a really nice chunk of crit power, and a little bit of crit rating, which synergizes really well with this build. And then the Reaver's Amulet, which actually gives us the 2-piece bonus from the set the Bone Doll is in, which is a 5% weapon power boost. This gives us a little bit of resilience, a little bit of crit rating, and a pretty good chunk of weapon power. So honestly, the Reaver Amulet Bone Doll set is not a bad idea to pick up these two particular items in the set. I'm sure we can find some better accessories out there, but this is what I'm using for now. I'll start min-maxing the accessories later on after I get the character to 30 and start to try to farm some of those level 30 drops. For the Affinity, we are going with 15 into Focus. The Discipline is going to be going up to 9 when I finish this build off. And then the Instinct is going to be stuck right there at 5 for now. So when they fix the bug where we actually get the 30th point, hopefully they'll let me reset this. When they let me reset this, I'm either going to be going 15 Focus, 15 Instinct, or 15 Focus, 15 Discipline, depending on which one of those playstyles suits me better at the time. So currently for the Affinity bonus, we are getting a 5% increase to Venomous's poisons. Not too bad. Later on, when we get that 30th point, we would be able to get the Explosive Venoms, which causes the eruption of your Master of Venoms to now deal a small amount of damage in an area. Once the bug is resolved and you can get all 30 points in your affinities, I would say going 15 into Instinct is probably going to be your better option if you want to go more pure damage dealer in that regard. For Discipline, we're picking up Soothing Vapors. This gives you 1% of your max health every second while standing in one of your poison clouds, and this gives you a little bit of survivability. I would pick this up as your second ability after you pick up the first 5 into Focus. Now, if you want to go with a more healer-centric build, once the bug is resolved and you have 30 points, you could take this all the way to 15. This is going to make your eruptions of the poison vapors from the enemies also shoot out some healing lurkers, which is similar to the effect of the healing that you get off of the transfusion darts. So if you want to be a more healing focused, but still really high damage Venomous, I would go 15 into this and 15 into Focus. Keep in mind, right now, at the time of posting this video, you can only get 29 points, which is why we're doing 5, 5, and 15, which ends up being 5, 9, and 15 when you hit level 30. For the Focus bonuses, we're getting a 10% chance to crit on enemies that are poisoned, which is going to help reduce our reliance on having crit rating. Because we're getting all of these built-in critical hit chances, we don't need to stack crit rating to get that high crit chance. With this build, we're going to be sitting around 34% crit chance without even accounting for our crit rating, which is why we're going heavy into crit power and into weapon power. For the 15-point ability on Focus, which is the one we're currently picking up until the bug is resolved, critical hits against a poison enemy will leave a poison cloud in the area, and this effect can occur every 6 seconds. Now, this ability actually helps a lot with damage as well as helping with your healing, because the more clouds you have to absorb with Vampiric Blast, the more healing you're going to put out, which is one of the main reasons I took this. This is kind of the balancing 15-point ability. It gives you some damage bonus, but also gives you some healing benefit. If you really wanted to, you could go 15 points into Discipline and pick up the extra healing when your Venoms erupt. But honestly, I think that that ability is going to synergize best once you can take both 15 into Focus and the 15 points into Discipline at the same time. For the Mastery, we're going to be using Inspiring Flourish. What this is going to do is give you a critical strike chance per pip or per flourish point that you spend when you use your heavy attack on your dagger. And we're going to go explain the heavy attack mechanic on the dagger in a minute. At rank 1, this is going to give you 4% per pip for up to 12% crit chance. At tier 2, it's going to give you 6% for 10 seconds per pip spent up to 18%. And at tier 3, it's going to give you 8% for 10 seconds per pip spent up to 24% crit strike chance. Now on the rifle version of this build, I recommended not going too heavy into crit rating because between the mastery and the talent point that you're taking from focus, you didn't really need it. Now on this version of the build, I am recommending a little bit more crit rating because the uptime I think on the dagger's flourish might not be 100%. So having that extra crit rating to kind of fill the gaps feels a little bit better to me personally. That's totally up to you. If you want to go a little bit lower on the crit rating than I'm recommending in this build, you can totally do that. If you can get those 3 flourishes off pretty consistently within like 10 to 15 seconds, you might not necessarily need to worry about having the extra crit rating, but reducing that will give you the opportunity to increase your crit power or your weapon power even more to help produce even more damage, or potentially raise your ability power to help increase your damage over time from your Venoms. For the upgrade recommendations, while leveling up, I would recommend taking Transfusion to 2, taking Vampiric Blast to 3, putting that 3rd point into Transfusion, and then either putting 1 point into Venom Thrusters or 1 point into Deep Breath. The alternative version of the ability layout that I want to try is going to be reducing Transfusion to 2, which you're going to lose those 2 additional homing needles, but that's going to give you 2 points to play with. And with those 2 points, we could put those in a Deep Breath, which is going to make your ultimate also apply a heal over time to everybody hit by the explosion. So if you want a little bit more healing power burst ability, then you could drop those 2 points from Transfusion, making your Transfusion not as effective of a heal, and putting them into Deep Breath to give you another heal in your toolbox. Now, one thing that I think is highly overlooked with the survivalist archetype is this exposed weakness mechanic. I don't think a lot of people are paying attention to this, but what this is going to do is when you critical hit an enemy, it exposes the enemy for 6 seconds, marking it for teammates. While the enemy is exposed, it takes an additional 10% damage from all sources. And just so you guys know, dots and heals can critically hit in this game. So not only will they get the damage bonus against the primary target you're focusing on, but because of all the venom clouds you're going to be spreading around your general vicinity, anybody standing in that general vicinity of where your vapor clouds or your venom clouds are will be getting stacks of venom, as well as taking damage from the venom clouds, both of which are going to be able to crit, which would expose the weakness on them as well, causing even more targets than just the primary target you're focusing on to take that additional 10% damage. So this build is going to give you the ability to really help buff your entire team's damage while you're still able to do a lot of damage and have a pretty substantial healing output at the same time. The other archetype ability we have is just a little bit of extra dodge capability. And then you have her Master of Venom's passive ability. Weapon hits apply venom, dealing damage over time and stacks up to 5 times. Weapon hits against enemies that already have 5 stacks of venom create a poison cloud that deals damage and applies stacks of venom. A poison cloud can be created by this effect once every 5 seconds, and that's going to be actually even faster with the focus affinity we're taking, because not only can you make 1 cloud every 5 seconds from Master of Venoms, but you're also going to be able to make 1 cloud every 6 seconds when you critically hit, allowing you to put out clouds almost twice as fast as a normal Venomous build. Then let's talk about the Blade Dance mechanic. Building flourish points every 4th consecutive melee attack. So when you start off a fight with the daggers, what you're going to want to do is go in, build up one of those flourish points or pips. If you perform a heavy attack with 0 pips, it's going to do a weak spin attack. Not too useful, but does allow you to do some AoE damage. If you do a heavy attack with 1 pip, it's going to deal moderate damage and grant a small immunity window during the attack, and also grants you a 15-second weapon power buff. This buff is going to be refreshed every time you spend 1, 2, or 3 pips on your heavy attack. Then you've got your 2 pip, which is going to perform a slightly more powerful attack, which also refreshes your buff and grants you a small invulnerability window. Then 3 pips performs a powerful AoE attack, and refreshes your buff and grants you that same immunity window. Now, every time you spend one of your pips using your heavy attack, it's going to fill your blade dance meter. Once your blade dance meter is full, you're going to be able to use your weapon ability. With the dagger, I am currently using it. Your weapon ability performs a leap stab attack that imbues your daggers with poison. During the duration of blade dance, it stacks poison each hit, dealing damage over time up to 10 stacks. Now, the thing to keep in mind with the weapon powers on the daggers is some of them sound better than others, but the main thing it does is it activates Blade Dance. While you're in your Blade Dance mode, all of your attacks hit twice for a short period of time. And because of all your attacks attacking twice while you're doing Blade Dance, instead of getting 4 attacks to build a pip, you're going to only need 2 attacks because each attack is going to count as 2 attacks towards building those pips up. This allows you in the time that you are doing your blade dance to be able to get anywhere from 3 to 4 3-pip flourishes off during your blade dance form. Now let's talk about the stat priorities. Let's start with the offensive stats. First, for your number 1 stat priority, it is going to be tied between weapon power and crit power. Either one of these can move a little ahead of the other, and it won't affect your overall play style very much. I would recommend focusing more on the crit power than the weapon power by just a hair if possible. For your secondary stat, and this is going to be underneath weapon power and crit power, is going to be the crit rating. You do want this a little bit higher than I recommended for the rifle build, just because I don't think the crit chance buffs are as reliable on daggers as they are on rifles because of the whole flourish point system. It's a little bit easier to do that reload than it is to do the 3-point flourish. Even though the 2-point flourish is going to put you on par with the rifle mastery, it's not going to be as easy to keep the 3-point flourish up as I think it is going to be able to keep the reload bonus up on the rifles. Try not to get this stat too high because you are going to want to put a little bit of points into ability power, which brings us to our third priority stat is going to be ability power. Now, right about 1800, maybe a little less than 1800, should allow you to use your Vampiric Blast to fully heal just about anybody in the game, unless they have their max health over, say, 4,000, I would say, in most cases, or unless they're really, really, really close to dying. Now, for the defensive stats, I'm going to be still prioritizing magic defense, though you're not going to need to put much effort into magic defense. This is going to just naturally be high on this particular build because of the Venom dagger and because of the way we're allocating our affinity points. So a little bit of magic defense is going to be helpful. After that, I would prioritize resilience and max HP relatively evenly in that regard. Maybe a little bit more focus on max HP or a little bit more focus on resilience, depending on your particular play style. Now, this is just a personal observation from me. The way daggers work with the spamming of the light attack and only using the heavy attack to activate your flourish spender, I'm not sure that you actually do heavy attack style damage. So I'm not sure break power is going to be all that effective in general with daggers, and I would just avoid that stat at all cost. So my recommendation for this build is that you're going to be leading in with your Venom Dash or your Cloud Dash ability to kind of put those Venom clouds down and start getting stacks of Venom right away from those, either because the enemies are running to you as you're dashing towards them with the Venom, or because you dash through them with the Venom. And this is going to allow you to start getting those Venom stacks up, so your first few hits have that chance to crit to spawn the extra Venom cloud from your critical talent. Once you engage with the enemies, start your dagger combos, get to that first pip, and activate your heavy attack to spend a 1-pip flourish to get your weapon power bonus from that. After that, you want to use your light attacks to build up your 3-pip and then do another flourish. And that's going to be your basic damage rotation. Once you get that first pip up and you haven't had your attack bonus drop off, you're just going to be building up 3 pips, doing your flourish to refresh that. Now, if you spend your flourishes before 3, that's usually going to be because the enemy is about to attack you with a heavy attack of some sort. And at that point, you can use your heavy attack to avoid that damage because of the immunity frame if you have 1, 2, or 3 pips when you heavy attack. If you don't have any pips currently active with your daggers, you can always use your block or right click to parry the attack and get a counter attack, which will help you build up even more pips for your flourish for the damage. Generally speaking, your goal is going to be to dish out as much damage as possible. I would keep transfusion on cooldown as much as possible. It's not going to do a lot of damage, but it is going to provide a little bit of healing to you and your allies. And when anybody takes a big hit in the melee vicinity of all your clouds, you can simply activate your Vampiric Blast to top everybody off and carry on. If you guys have any comments about the build, let me know in the comment section down below. Or if you guys have any questions, let me know. And I will be happy to answer those questions as soon as I get a chance to reply to them. If you guys want to check out the build live, I usually play this build on my live streams here on YouTube. And if you guys are looking for an active Wayfinder community to join, for some people to play with because you're tired of playing with those randoms in the queue, check the social link in the video description down below to join our Discord server. And until next time, guys, happy hunting.